For years my parents crushed me, labeling me the family's black sheep. So I walked away. But when I dared to show up at my granddad's 80th, their venomous words cut deep. People can't know you're still a failure. That was the moment I decided enough was enough. And what happened next shocked everyone. For as long as I can remember, I lived in the shadow of my older brother Mark. He was the golden child, everything our parents idolized. Academically brilliant, disciplined, always bringing home perfect grades. Mark had this unwavering focus, this drive that made him seem utterly flawless in their eyes. Me? I was the exact opposite. School felt like a constant battle. I struggled to focus, procrastinated on everything until the very last second, and my memory was a sieve. It wasn't just academics. These challenges spilled into every corner of my life, leaving me feeling like I could never, ever measure up. I beat myself up, convinced I was just lazy or incapable. Took years, but eventually everything clicked. The diagnosis? ADHD. It was a revelation. A light finally shining on all those years of confusion and frustration. Suddenly, every struggle, from my inability to concentrate to my chronic procrastination, made perfect sense. With medication and the right tools, I've learned to navigate it, to take control of my life in ways I never imagined possible. But back then, during my childhood, there was no diagnosis, no understanding, no support. All my parents saw were my shortcomings. My parents, you see, were incredibly accomplished people themselves. High-achieving academics, widely respected in their fields, holding prestigious positions. Naturally, they expected nothing less than perfection from their children. They wanted Mark and me to be the most successful people in any room we entered. Mark, of course, effortlessly met those expectations. I, however, was their troublesome child. I wasn't working hard enough, wasn't disciplined enough, wasn't good enough. The comparisons to Mark, their golden child, were relentless, deepening the chasm between us. Those words, those constant comparisons, they hurt more than my parents could ever know. They made me feel like there was something fundamentally broken about me, simply for being different. And Mark? He certainly didn't make things any easier. We went to the same school, and it felt like I could never escape his shadow or his judgment. If I missed an assignment or got into any kind of trouble, he'd unleash a torrent of insults, screaming about how embarrassed he was to have a loser sibling like me. His words were like daggers, especially coming from someone I was supposed to look up to. At home, he'd tattle on me for the smallest infractions, hanging out with friends instead of studying. He was constantly trying to prove to our parents that he was the superior child. I think part of it stemmed from the fact that Mark had no friends. He was a classic know-it, always acting superior, always ready to pounce on anyone who made a mistake. People just didn't like him. He isolated himself, and instead of reflecting on why, he just doubled down on his condescending attitude. Yet, despite all his flaws, my parents absolutely adored him. They never once called him out, never encouraged him to be kinder or more humble. Instead, they celebrated him as if he could do no wrong. They bragged about him constantly. At family gatherings, at work, to neighbors, to anyone who would listen. Every year they threw extravagant birthday parties for him. Fancy decorations, a long guest list, expensive gifts. They made it abundantly clear he deserved to be celebrated because, in their exact words, he was the one good thing to come out of their marriage. Can you even begin to imagine hearing your own parents say that about your sibling? As if you're utterly worthless in comparison? Meanwhile, my birthdays were almost an afterthought. No parties, no excitement. Just the same predictable gift every year, books. Not fun, imaginative stories a kid would love, but educational ones. The kind that screamed, you need to work harder. When Mark graduated from college, it was a monumental occasion for our family. He got into one of the top universities in the country, and my parents were absolutely over the moon, boasting to anyone who would listen about his achievements. 2 years later, when it was my turn, the situation couldn't have been more different. I didn't get into a prestigious university like Mark. I was accepted into an average university, one that didn't hold the same weight or prestige in my parents' eyes. Their disappointment was palpable. My dad didn't even try to hide it. He told me outright that he had no hopes for me anymore. He said he just wanted me gone from their lives, because he was too embarrassed to even tell relatives where I was going to college. Those words crushed me. To hear your own father essentially disown you, all because you didn't live up to an unrealistic standard, is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. My parents called me the black sheep of the family, saying they regretted having me, that raising me had been a waste of their time and resources. Mark, of course, chimed in, making it clear he felt disgusted by my chosen college. He said, even though I didn't expect you to reach my level of academic excellence, you should have at least tried harder. To them, my best was simply never good enough. The hurt, the anger, the betrayal. It all boiled over. I made a decision right then and there. If they truly felt this way about me, if they genuinely believed I wasn't worth their time or love, then I would do them a favor and cut them off. I wasn't going to stay in an environment that only tore me down. I promised myself I would carve out my own path, no matter how hard, and I wouldn't look back. Going to college was a new chapter, but it came with its own immense challenges. I had to take out an education loan just to afford it, and I picked up a part-time job to support myself. Balancing work, studies, and managing my ADHD was incredibly difficult. There were so many moments I felt like giving up, but I didn't. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who truly believed in me. Friends who were supportive, encouraging, who saw my potential instead of my flaws. With their help, and the right medication to manage my ADHD, I started to build a life that felt meaningful, fulfilling. Today, I'm an AI solutions architect at a top multinational corporation. By the way, if you're still with me and finding this story unbelievable, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There are so many more untold truths coming your way. For the past 9 years, I'd had zero contact with my parents or my brother. I'd actively distanced myself, trying to heal from a past that brought me nothing but pain. I usually avoided all family events just to steer clear of them. But this time, this was my granddad's 80th birthday party. He personally called, he begged me to come. I hadn't seen him in so long, and he's one of the few people in my family who has always shown me kindness. I couldn't bear the guilt of disappointing him on such a milestone occasion. So, against my better judgment, I decided to go. When I arrived, my parents were already there. I'd expected it, of course, but seeing them after so many years still stirred up old, raw emotions I wasn't entirely prepared for. I reminded myself why I was there, for Granddad. I discreetly greeted him, gave him a hug, and spent the rest of the time saying hello to genuinely surprised and happy family members. Many hadn't seen me in almost a decade, so they were excited to catch up. But then my parents spotted me. I caught the look on their faces, stunned, as if they couldn't believe I was standing there. Almost immediately, my mom approached, her expression unreadable, and asked if she could have a word with me privately. I nodded, and she guided me to a quiet corner, away from wandering eyes. From the very first word, they made it crystal clear they weren't happy to see me. No pleasantries, no hint of reconciliation. My mom's first question was blunt, cold. "What are you doing here?" I calmly explained Granddad had personally invited me, and I couldn't ignore him. My dad wasn't satisfied. He demanded to know why I'd never bothered with previous family events, yet suddenly decided to show up now. He taunted me, questioning if Granddad was just an excuse, if I was finally coming to my senses, and looking to reconnect after all these years. His words infuriated me, but I held my composure. I told them firmly, unequivocally, that I had no desire to reconnect. I didn't need their permission to attend my own granddad's party. If my presence bothered them so much, they could simply go back to ignoring me and leave me alone. But Dad argued, "We wish we could ignore you, but people will start asking questions." He said I should have given them a heads up so they could have been better prepared to answer questions about me. Honestly, he acted like I'd committed a crime. I told him with a touch of sarcasm that if anyone asked, they could simply say I was doing very well in life, that I had a successful career and a supportive partner. Hearing this, my mom scoffed. "Do you honestly expect us to believe you have a successful career? You didn't even graduate from a decent college, for goodness sake." A rush of pure anger ignited within me. I had built my career from the ground up, overcoming obstacle after obstacle, and here she was dismissing everything I'd achieved with a single sneering sentence. Before I could retort, my mom pointed to the door. Her voice was ice. "You should leave. People can't know you're still a failure." I was utterly stunned. Who did they think they were? Kicking me out of a party that wasn't even about them? How could they still treat me like this? They were so obsessed with protecting their image, acting holier than thou in front of others. Their dismissive, hurtful words hammered home the realization. They still saw me as that same child they could control. But I wasn't that person anymore. If they were so worried about what people might say, I decided right then and there I was going to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. Without a second thought, I pushed past them and walked back to where the other guests were gathered. My granddad immediately noticed something was off and came over to check on me. I didn't hold back. I poured out everything. What my parents had said, how they tried to kick me out, how they were still so ashamed of me they didn't want anyone to know I was even there. Hearing this, my granddad was livid. He assured me my parents had no right to treat me that way, let alone ruin his birthday. He offered to speak to them, but I told him it wouldn't make a difference. What we needed to do was bring the truth to light, publicly. Luckily, Granddad agreed. I then raised my glass and gently clinked it. The room fell silent and all eyes turned to me. I took a deep breath, steadied my voice, and started by congratulating my granddad on reaching an incredible milestone, thanking him for inviting me, and saying how much it meant to celebrate with him. Then I shifted gears. I told everyone how wonderful it was to see so many family members again after so many years, but I also explained why I hadn't been part of these celebrations for nearly a decade. I'm sure many of you are wondering why I've never shown up to any family event over the years, I began. So I'm going to tell you the truth. It was because of my parents. The truth, I said, was that my parents had always treated me like I was beneath them, making me feel like nothing more than a burden. I laid it all out. How they'd ostracized me made me feel inadequate, labeled me a failure simply because I hadn't lived up to their impossible expectations. I shared how I'd paid my own way through college, taking out loans and working part-time jobs, without a single ounce of support from them. I made it clear that while I'd worked tirelessly to build a life for myself, they hadn't once reached out to check on me. The room was dead silent. Some exchanged uncomfortable glances, others stared at my parents, who looked absolutely mortified. My dad's face was chalk white, my mom looked furious. I didn't stop there. I detailed how throughout my entire childhood, they had favored Mark, showering him with love, attention and opportunities, while labeling me the black sheep. I explained how their constant comparisons and harsh treatment had alienated me, how they dismissed my struggles with ADHD as laziness, never once trying to understand or support me. I went on to say that now, as a successful adult, I had no expectation they would suddenly embrace me. However, I certainly didn't anticipate they would scold me for attending my own granddad's birthday party. A party I was invited to by the guest of honor himself. It was absurd, it was hurtful, and I wanted everyone to know just how ridiculous their behavior truly was. So for all those years I wasn't at family events, I concluded. I wasn't being rude or distant. I was protecting myself. I was trying to heal from years of emotional wounds. But today, when I showed up here for the sake of my granddad, my parents wanted to kick me out. They kept saying they don't want to answer questions about me, as it makes them feel ashamed. So this is why I wanted to address this here, in front of all of you once and for all. I'm done hiding. I'm done allowing them to make me feel like I'm the problem. From now on, I'll be attending every family event, regardless of whether my parents like it or not. As I finished my speech, my granddad and some of my cousins started to cheer. They came over, wrapping me in hugs, showering me with support. My parents, on the other hand, seemed frozen in place, unable to conjure any defense now that their carefully constructed narrative was shattered. For so long they had controlled the story, but now everyone could see the reality of who they were. After that, my parents quickly left, clearly humiliated, while I stayed, enjoying the rest of the party with my cousins and other close relatives. In the days that followed, several relatives reached out, expressing support and commending my courage. Some even apologized for not seeing what I'd gone through. Not everyone agreed, though. A handful felt I went too far by exposing them publicly. But honestly, I have no regrets about speaking my truth. For those wondering, Mark wasn't there. He was on a work trip. A small mercy, as he surely would have sided with them. Many also asked why I didn't seek financial help back then. The truth is, I was young, naive, and so ashamed. My parents and Mark had mocked my choices, belittled my dreams, and I was mortified at the thought of airing our dirty laundry and facing more rejection. I was too proud, determined to handle it on my own. My granddad, however, was always my rock. While he wasn't financially stable enough to help with college, his emotional support was invaluable. He understood everything, never judged, and I'm eternally grateful he gave me the platform to finally speak out. Since that day, I've heard from multiple relatives that my parents are facing serious backlash. Their carefully crafted facade is finally crumbling. I can only hope this public embarrassment serves as a wake-up call, that maybe, just maybe, they'll reflect on their actions. But even if they don't, I've said my piece, and I feel a profound sense of closure. Then just this week, Mark reached out. He'd heard everything from our parents and relatives, and the moment I picked up, he started yelling. Furious. He couldn't believe I had the audacity to expose our parents publicly, claiming I was just causing drama, being selfish. He ranted about family's dirty laundry, and ruining the fragile peace. He demanded to know what I wanted from them. An apology? Really, for what? He sneered. Just because they didn't pay for your college fees? Because they were disappointed in you? Because they always pushed you to be better? Because they wanted the best for you? I couldn't help but scoff. Mark had always sided with them, brushing off my hurt as family drama. It was easier for him to pretend everything was fine than face the truth. I reminded him that pushing someone to be better doesn't mean humiliating or mocking them for years. What I needed was support, love, understanding parents who saw me for who I was, who helped me navigate my challenges instead of berating me for falling short of impossible standards. He argued I should have sorted it privately, saying I'd ruined their image, made their accomplishments meaningless. He suggested I was just bitter, that maybe they were right all along, implying my own accomplishments were nothing. I laughed. A genuine calm laugh. Despite everything you and our parents put me through, I told him, I've built a successful career. I explained that exposing them had nothing to do with my success. It was about finally taking control of my own narrative after years of being silenced, dismissed, and wronged. It was about standing up for myself, about letting people know what really happened behind closed doors. Mark predictably wouldn't back down. He demanded a public apology from me. For their reputation. I cut him off. Bluntly. Why would I apologize to them, Mark, when I am the victim? I told him to get his head out of the hole he buried it in, to stop defending people who treated me like trash. Just to frustrate him further, I declared I would be attending every single family event from now on. If they dared confront me again, I would keep exposing them. Why should their toxic behavior control my connections with the rest of my family? I had every right. Mark claimed I was only doing this to make their lives miserable, demanding I go back to cutting contact with everyone. I sighed in exasperation. Clearly, we weren't going to see eye to eye. I told him to stay in his lane, to mind his own business. I wasn't going to tolerate any more of his excuses. Then I ended the call and blocked his number. I owed him nothing. No explanations, no apologies. In the last 4 months, things have shifted dramatically. I've made a conscious effort to be more involved in my family life, attending all gatherings, spending more time with my amazing granddad, and hanging out with my cousins. It's been incredible to strengthen those bonds and create new positive memories. And then last month, something I never thought would happen. My dad apologized. Since both my parents were blocked, he reached out via email. He shared that he'd been going to therapy, reflecting deeply on the past. He admitted that he and my mom had indeed favored Mark, trying to justify it by saying they grew up in strict, academically focused families and expected the same from us. But he said that when I spoke up at Granddad's party and revealed my ADHD, it was a turning point. He'd done his own research, realized the truth, and confessed to feeling immense guilt for not recognizing the signs, for failing to support me when I needed it most. He even wrote how he'd been quietly following my career on LinkedIn and was truly proud of my accomplishments. He mentioned my mom too, acknowledging she's aware of my achievements but is a very proud woman who will need a little bit of time before she's ready to offer her own apology. Honestly, I'm still in shock. If only he'd been this understanding, this reflective when I was growing up, my childhood could have been so different. That said, despite his email, I haven't unblocked him or my mom. I'm still not ready to forgive them. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against family who tried to put you down? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.